Y'all ready? Yeah. Let's go. Come on.
Tiger Rag Radio is on the air.
Let's crank this thing up.
We're statewide, breaking down the latest happenings with LSU athletics.
This is us.
Hear from the coaches,
Put together a defense that puts us in a position to win the SEC.
the players,
Having fun and we working, baby. That's it, baby.
the recruits,
Show some passion and some heart.
and those who cover the Fighting Tigers of LSU and the
All
SEC.
those things are going to be there, which are important.
It's 2 hours of nonstop LSU
What
talk.
a privilege. I mean, you get to represent LSU.
Tiger Rag Radio is brought to you by Cummins. Cummins creates power solutions that the world depends on. Helm Paint and Decorating. The paint experts of Louisiana. Louisiana Beef Industry Council. Max Home. And the East Baton Rouge Parish Library. Get ready to talk Tigers with producer Jackson Blackman and hosts Todd Horne, Jeff Palermo, and Glenn Gilbo.
There's a lot of players that are better people than they are players.
This is Tiger Rag Radio, live from Super Chevy Dealers Studio.
And good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Tiger Rag Radio. Jeff Palermo, News and Sports Director of Louisiana Radio Network, along with the Executive Editor for Tiger Rag Magazine, Todd Horne, Andre Champagne for Tiger Rag and Louisiana Radio Network. And most likely joining us a little bit later on, it'll be the editor for Tiger Rag Magazine, Glenn Gilbo. Glenn is over at campus getting interviews with select few players that will be available today. As we're here, game week has arrived, guys. We've made it. Todd, Andre, the excitement's building for Saturday nights at the other Death Valley, Little Death Valley, whatever you want to call it. But
Death Valley Jr.
Death Valley Jr. But here we are. We're here. What do you guys think?
Well, we're running through our final walkthroughs right now. For Tuesday. You know, we're going to have another walkthrough on Wednesday, but you know,
right.
We're just trying to make sure we're ready, and you know, have our I's dotted and T's crossed because this is such an important game. We got to go 1-0.
Yeah, I think you guys are getting pretty annoyed with me at this point because all I've been doing is saying, like, I've been counting the days down, but I think everyone is just ready to see some football.
Yeah. Week 0 did not fill my appetite, I'll tell you that. I actually really didn't watch I watched Nichols play.
Yes.
Huge upset over UIW. I couldn't really get into the Iowa State game. I don't know what it was.
Maybe because the field was soaking wet and there were 4 fumbles through the first 17 minutes of the game.
Yeah, but the fight after the game was great.
Right.
Well,
Johnson's,
really
right? Yeah.
Avery Johnson's
family
dad
affair
and
in
big
Dublin.
brother. Yeah, that was. I think that might be the most memorable thing to happen with that game. But well, anyways, we have a great show lined up for everyone again tonight as we get ready for the season opener. But let's take a step back first because some big news was made last week, and that was the Southeastern Conference moving to the 9-game conference schedule. This is something that I think most of us, I can't imagine there's anybody out there in LSU land that would like to just keep it at 8 games, but maybe there are people that are like that. But I think we all want to see more competitive games that matter. You do love, or you might enjoy playing the Southeastern Louisianas of the world, but it's when big SEC games. That's what you get up for, and there's the possibility of having more bigger games inside Tiger Stadium. So here to talk about it, the man that's in charge of scheduling, and that's Verge Ausberry. And I believe Verge is going to break the news to us about the 3 permanent opponents, right, Verge? Is that what you're going to do for us here tonight?
I don't think so, Jeff.
Okay.
I'll pass on that. That should be released here soon by the conference.
Okay.
They've been working on that part of the deal. You know, we're very happy. We were in school pushing the 9 games, and we supported that. I think it's good for our conference. I think it's good for football in the country right now, and I think it's just where we need it to be. And you talked about those schools, Southeastern. We're gonna still play all the state schools and probably play them more frequently now because with the 9 games, we know how to schedule now. You got 9 games, you have a Power 4 opponent. And then those other 2 spots, it'd definitely be a Louisiana school.
Well, Verge, this is Todd. What is the timetable for the permanent opponents announcement? And then that's still going to rotate on a reevaluation basis when it comes out, correct?
Correct. And that should help. Hopefully, that should come out here in the next week or so, because we're getting behind really on all of our travel arrangements. Airplanes, hotels, those type of things, and we knew we'd be pushing it close. But usually we have those dates already set up, and we know what to do and where we're going, and how we're going to do our traveling. And that's our CFOs and the SEC are really concerned about that right now, because the later you wait, as you know, the more expensive it is. So those are things that we're trying to work on. But hopefully here within maybe the end of this week or the beginning of next week, we'll figure that out. The good part about it, you're going to play everybody in 2 years, and you'll play in 4 years. You'll be visiting everyone, and that's very good for, I think, everybody in the conference. That's the way of young men playing the SEC. You want to have that experience to play at different venues and your competitors in the conference, and that's something that I was fortunate enough as a player to do. But in this day and age, if you look at it, we ain't been to Missouri since the COVID year, but before then it's been so they've been in the conference. In some places, Georgia has never really been to Texas A&M for a game yet, and I don't think that's fair. And I think it's fair that every kid who plays in the SEC gets the opportunity to play against everybody in the conference.
Right. And that's one of the big pros of this is that it is going to increase fan engagement and attendance, because it's giving them more than more of what they really want, which is strong competition. And apparently, Verge, it coincides, I guess, coincidentally, with the CFP deciding that schedule strength was a primary criteria finally.
I think it is, and I think you're going to see you added another SEC game. That's one more loss for the conference. You have to remember that also. But I think it gives you an advantage, and I think it's just a day and age where we are and where things are moving. I spoke today at New Orleans Quarterback Club, and I told them about this last year I came to you where we were to where we are today, how quickly things have changed. I think they'll be changing even at a faster pace. We don't know where this thing is going. Right now in the world of rev share and other things, and people are now looking for revenue. Is revenue generated, and how can you generate more revenue to your team, to your program, to your conference? That's kind of where we're sitting today.
Well, and speaking of revenue, I mean, 1 year you're going to have 4 SEC home games, just like you do now, but the next year you'll have 5. So that's an additional big ticket home game. And not only is that probably going to be appealing to the ESPN in terms of a new contract potentially, I would think, which would mean more revenue, but also ticket sales and concessions at, with a sold-out Tiger Stadium every other year, one additional game. That's got to be important to you guys.
It's very important, and you made a good point there about the 5-4. We always have to make sure we have 7 home games, and all of us are working on that. We kind of slowed scheduling down a little bit, and we didn't go out there and get an extra game, the 4th game, because we didn't want to be dropping anybody, and we were afraid that, if we stayed at 8 games, we have to add somebody this late. So I think we're in a good position at LSU. We have our Power Fours kind of scheduled out from this point on. As you know, some schools in the conference, you saw Alabama, I think that they dropped West Virginia. Mm-hmm. They had Florida State and West Virginia. In some schools, like Georgia, already have their Power Four opponent in their rival game. You talk about Georgia Tech, you talk about Louisville and Kentucky, you talk about Florida State and Florida, South Carolina and Clemson. So they already have that built-in Power Four opponent in their schedules. And you see, you said some things earlier about, schools announcing their quarterbacks. And I think the good part is that, we have our quarterback at LSU with Nussmeier. That gives you an advantage going in when you have an older quarterback to play these type of games. Right.
So speaking of the future schedules for LSU, September 5th of next year will be the Clemson return trip. That's scheduled. Will that still be the opener for next year, or what do you think?
I never say never. Right now it's the opener. Things could happen before then. We're looking at all possibilities right now. You look at week 0 sometimes with the new schedule format. gives you extra open date, things of that nature in the schedule. So we have everything on the table right now. Back in the day, we said we never play a week 0 game. Well, things have changed now. And the way the playoff system has taught us how you scheduling, the strength of schedule, how you work the schedule.
Sounds like Verge's line has been intercepted, guys.
Yeah, it does.
Maybe that was, I don't know, maybe that was Clemson canceling next year's game or something, trying to get out of it.
It's too early for that. Maybe they'll want to cancel it on Tuesday. But
yeah, right. Well, I'm sure Jackson is trying to get Verge back. Todd, you have a guess on who the 3 permanent opponents are?
I would say, I mean, this is strictly a guess, okay, because I don't know what the criteria that the SEC is considering when they're choosing this, but I would think it's definitely going to be Alabama. I think it's definitely going to be Ole Miss, and I actually think it's probably going to be either Texas A&M or Auburn. Okay.
All right. What do you think, Andre?
I would say Ole Miss is probably a lock, and then Arkansas would be, or Alabama, I would say would be the second, and the third is a toss-up for me between Texas A&M or I kind of hope that they bring the Auburn game back because it's so historic, but then also you look at it and then historically LSU has played Arkansas for the boot for so long now, so I don't see them swaying away from those games.
Yeah, I think Alabama you have to have because it's one of your most highest rated games every year, TV-wise.
Right.
And I agree with you, Andre. I think Arkansas is a big rival for LSU, and I think they'll look at it from that point. My third, I think, is a bit of a wild card. I'm thinking Oklahoma. I really think the league wants to have a rivalry between LSU and Oklahoma, and that last game of the regular season comes down to something.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
I think, you know what? I maybe I should spit out some words, right? I think that I would think they would like to see how the Oklahoma LSU series goes before they make that decision, and I think that's part of the reason why they're going to be reevaluating it so often is because
how many years do you think they'll reevaluate it?
I think every 2 years they're going to reevaluate
really?
It. Realistically, yes, I do.
But that would then screw up. I think then you might screw up this idea of traveling to every school every 4 years. I think it's going to be. I think they're going to wait longer than that.
Okay. Hey, Jeff, Verge is back.
Go ahead,
I'm back
Todd.
on, yeah. And I was listening to what you were talking about. I think don't get ahead of yourselves right now and worrying about it too much. I think there'll be a lot of funny things that's happening to the schedules that's going to be in there. Your last game might not be a SEC game. It might be one of your bye games. It might go back to the old ways where, remember when I played, Tulane was the last opponent on the schedule. So there are going to be a lot of things you might see here a little different with the schedules. You talked about Alabama. Where Alabama, I'm just guessing this year. Auburn's probably going to be one of their permanents, and I think Tennessee going to be one of their permanent opponents. So that's two powerful teams right there. So you don't know who that third opponent is going to be for them, but those, Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia, Auburn, those are two oldest rivalries in the SEC. Those games,
right?
And I don't see those disappearing or going away, and I don't see Alabama, Auburn going away. That's a major rival game, no different from Texas and Texas A&M. So I think everybody just need to wait and see, and I think there'll be a good format. And I think we'll evaluate it, and that's what we do. Sankey has been great at that, the commissioner, about looking at what makes the conference better, what makes us better. I think that's one of the things that he got behind, pushing the 9 games.
Well, Verge, going back to your future schedule, I mean, you already have Clemson set for a return next week or next year, like we talked about. And then you have right now in 2028, you have a home starting with SMU, which would be a Power 4 setup. You think that'll remain as the opener for both years, 28 and 29?
Yes, we're not planning on moving anything. There's a good chance that that game at SMU might be in Jerry's World. Then we'll look back and, look at the numbers on that game. We have Houston in 2027. That's a Power 4 opponent in Houston, in RG. We still want to keep some of our games in different areas, different parts of the country that's beneficial for us. In Houston, New Orleans, Dallas, Atlanta, those are strong recruiting bands for us, and that's where we want to stay. That's where we want to be. But we're going to take our time. We're not going to rush into anything. I think that's important, and we have time now. I think it's good to know that we have the 9-game schedule. It really helps us out with scheduling. I want to make it very clear that the schools in Louisiana, we're going to play all of them. We're going to keep the money in the state. We're not going to be going out there. We have a few future games with teams from out of state, but primarily our bye games going to be the teams from Louisiana and help them out. We're the flagship, and we're going to continue to do that, scheduling teams from out of state.
Okay, Verge, we're going to have to go to a break shortly, but I did want to ask you one other question, and I appreciate your time so much. I really appreciate it. Earlier this week, Kelly talked about meeting with you and saying that he wasn't here for the setting of the schedules. This will be his first year where he has influence on the schedules moving forward. So I just figured you might want to tell us everything you two talked about whenever he got together with you and talked about the schedules.
We talk about the right opponents, the timing of the game, and like the SMU game, I always talk to the head coach about the schedules. We never just go out there and do a schedule for a coach and he don't have no influence or input in it. That's important for him. And SMU was an opponent we looked at together. He said, first, that's somebody, we should try to schedule. You talk about the Clemson game. Most times, some of these games are scheduled so far out. That was 8 years ago.
Right.
I always laugh. Most of these kids were in the 4th, 5th grade that we scheduled this game, and Coach Kelly was nowhere around here when we scheduled that game. In fact, Dan Radakovich was the AD at Clemson, and now he's at Miami when we did that game. So that's how far out we go out sometimes, that we were going out 7 and 8 years. So, yes, we would have input, and we work together and put in the schedule the best thing for our fans.
All right.
Well, Verge, thanks a lot for your time, man. We really appreciate it. Look forward to seeing who these permanent opponents are. And sorry, man, I just can't help but not speculate.
Jeff, Todd, Andrea, y'all have a great day. Thank you.
All right. That is Verge Ausberry, former LSU Tiger, as a player and now as an athletic administrator. We'll take a break. More of Tiger Rag Radio from the Super Chevy Dealer Studio when we come back.
Welcome to the Chevy Lightning Round. Guess the clues to win. First team, you're up.
Powerful, commanding, unstoppable.
Silverado.
Adventurous, fun, techie.
Trailblazer.
Stylish, nimble.
Trax.
Innovative, electric.
Blazer EV. Lightning Round champions. You've guessed all the right Chevy clues.
Wherever the year takes you, explore it together in the Chevy of your choice. See your Super Chevy dealers today.
You should call that radio station and let him have it.
Good idea. 1-800-673-5555.
I want to be under the bright lights. I want to be on the Broadway stage.
Tiger Rag Radio is on now.
Jeff Palermo back inside the Super Chevy Dealer Studio. We'll talk a lot about the upcoming game, the season opener here with Bryce Koon coming up in the next segment. Of course, he's now with the Bengal Tiger on 3, the on 3 sports rivals, Bengal Tiger. We'll get his perspective on the season opener between LSU and Clemson. Jeff Palermo, along with the executive editor, Todd Horne and Andre Champagne. Glenn Gilbo over at the LSU Football Ops Building getting player interviews. We hope to hear from Glenn before we get out of here tonight. Tough day in the NFL as I think it's over I don't know what the exact number is, but it's something huge. It's I don't know, 1,400. Maybe I might be exaggerating this. 1,400 players get cut today in the NFL, something like that. It's a crazy number. Maybe that's a little bit high.
No, I think that sounds about right. Yeah, that sounds about right.
I mean, okay, all right. I think that number sticks in my head. And there's some former Tigers who, unfortunately, were told they did not make the team. Go ahead, Todd.
Well, I was going to say we've got a non-comprehensive list here, but there's some interesting names to talk about. But before we talk about the bad news, Josh Williams,
yes,
who was a late-round draft choice of the Tampa Bay Bucks, just had a phenomenal preseason, and he made the 53-man squad. for the Bucks.
Very significant. Very smart. I think his smarts is what – and one of my big concerns that nobody's talked about at all this season is who's going to help in pass protection as a running back. He was outstanding in it, and I don't know if LSU really has somebody that can do that.
To your point, Kelly talked about how he used film of Josh Williams to show the current running backs correct pass protection blocking and the schemes and the real things that were on. So that's a very good point from you. But we did see some. Andre, why don't you just go through the list and talk a little bit about each one as we can.
Yeah, so wide receiver Terrace Marshall Jr. was cut by the Eagles today. Others, he's been overshadowed as that third wide receiver from the 2019 season. And then Clyde Edwards-Helaire from the Saints was cut. Zy Alexander of the Bills. Big surprise from Braden Swinson of the Patriots. Defensive end got cut. And that's about that's about it. Yeah.
No, go through.
Okay, we have Eli Ricks, if you want to count him, with the Eagles. Trey Palmer from the Bucks. And
Major Burns.
And Major Burns
from the Bears.
Yeah, he's hurt.
And Laurel Collins.
Major Burns.
Laurel Collins was cut from the Cowboys.
All right, let's take a break. Bryce Koon from the Bengal Tiger will join us when we come back here on Tiger Rag Radio.
Summer reading is done. Back to school has begun. Join your East Baton Rouge Parish Library for events in August that will help make this school year one for the books. Attend a presentation about educational resources in our digital library. Sign up your teen for a practice ACT test and get to know some of the tutors that offer their services at the library. Learn more about these and other events at ebrpl.com. That's ebrpl.com.
Now, back to Tiger Rag Radio, live from Super Chevy Dealers Studio.
Okay, we're back here on Tiger Rag Radio tonight in the Super Chevy Dealer Studio. This is Todd Horne along with Andre. I want to say champagne so bad, Anyway, we've got Bryce Koon, who's one of the three LSU beat writers for On 3.
Yep. How are you doing?
Good. How you doing? You ready for the game, man? It's game week. It's a totally different vibe right now.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's nice to be talking about an actual game and not conference realignment and playoff, changes. We get to talk about actual college football. I mean, it's a welcoming feeling.
Yeah, it sure is. I mean, I know everybody's excited. This game just has a different feel to it than most season openers here around LSU and in college football in general. I mean, this is a big time game. It's got massive implications for both teams. Are you going to be at the game? Or are you going to be covering it from home? How are you going to do that?
Yeah, plan is we're heading out Friday morning, and we'll get there around Friday afternoon and be on location this weekend. So it should make for a fun atmosphere, like you mentioned, with lots of implications surrounding the game and expecting an awesome crowd as well.
So you'll be attending the game at Death Valley Junior.
There we go.
What do you think about that? What do you think about Kelly playing that up so much and actually putting it out there like that?
I mean, if you've covered this team for some time under Kelly, I mean, I go back to my first year on the beat 2 years ago when, he talked about we were going to, we're going to take care of business. We're going to beat the crap out of Florida State or something like that. I can't remember exactly how he worded it.
That was
at
it.
His radio show.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, I mean, he says that. I mean, it's just playing up to the fans. Kelly's been a head coach for 30 plus years. He knows what to say, what you say, and understands in the vein of what he's talking about. And does it put a target on LSU's back and his back at times? Probably, yeah, it does. But I think it's also something that understanding, how to be that politician, I guess, with that role that comes with being a head coach of a major college football program.
Bryce, we've talked about it several times here on the Tiger Rag Radio Show and at different places throughout the course of the past couple of months, but Kelly is really, not just necessarily doing this for political reasons. He's pushing his chips to the middle, and he's acting really confident. I mean, are you seeing that confidence, and do you think it's warranted?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a reason for the confidence and understanding, and it kind of starts with that you're bringing back, probably the most accomplished quarterback in the country in terms of a guy that went out and put up big stats and a guy that you feel like you know what you're going to get out of. I mean, that's probably point number one. I mean, as they built this roster around him and several other players, it's no secret they went and spent some money. So when you combine that and you get a look at the team that we've seen through spring ball and, obviously they saw during the summer workouts portion, and then we've gotten a chance to see over the past month during fall camp. I mean, I think there's a reason for confidence, a reason for optimism. You've built this roster to be one of the best in college football. I think on paper they've got a group that, I mean, can go win a national title if things break right and things develop like they should. So I think there's a reason for that confidence, and I like the fact that they haven't shied away from it, because you can't do that here. I mean, for all the people that get mad when Kelly says something and, maybe it doesn't happen, what's the alternative, I'd ask? Like, do you want him to downplay everything? No, there's a certain standard here at LSU. He understands it. He embraces it. And look, I mean, whether it works out or not for him down here to capture that national title, I don't think you can say that he has tried to make excuses in terms of why this or that. It's either, he said it and it either hasn't happened or it has.
Yeah, Bryce, this is Andre. I just wanted to ask you, kind of going into this game, I guess defensively, LSU will have to deal with another running quarterback this year. How do you think they maybe, deal with him this year? And is it any differently than what we've seen in the past with LSU's kind of struggles with the rushing quarterback?
Yeah, I think you have to start with understanding, and this isn't a slight at Cade Klubnik, but this isn't Marcel Reed or Jalen Mills. I mean, Klubnik's a very good athlete, but he's not either of those guys in terms of the athletic ability, maybe that top line speed. So when you take it down, and I'll even kind of throw him, he's not Lenore Sellers in terms of the size. So is he a tier below that in terms of being able to run the football? Yes. Those guys can do that at nearly an elite rate. So he's still really good. I think it comes down to, and Andre, you've been out there with me, and Glenn has as well, in terms of seeing what we've seen during fall camp. They've got to play assignment sound football. I mean, over the past 2 years, the amount of times that after a loss they have come out, and it was Greg Penn, who was the guy who was always sent out to talk after losses. I asked him every single time, and he would mention, he said communication. Like, communication was just an issue, and that's something that they feel more comfortable with, but you have to understand your role. You have to play your assignment. And with a defense that has a lot of veterans, I think you're going to see that. Like, I think you're going to see guys understand their role and play inside themselves. Over the past couple of years, I mean, for lack of better words, you've had some guys that maybe freelance a little too much out there on the field and try to make the big play. And once that happens, if you don't make that play, well, your entire coverage is busted, or, your run lanes are messed up. So it's just something where play your role. Kelly has talked about that. Baker has talked about that. They feel like they've got the personnel to go do it. Because a guy against Klubnik, I mean, you think about it, you can have a revamped secondary that's got everybody covered. And they've got a really good wide receiver room, I think. But the threat of him pulling it down and running is very real. So Whit Weeks, Harold Perkins, like, those guys have got to be ready, and they can't over pursue. And also, kind of last thing, they've got to be able to tackle well in open space, man. That's something that's been pretty bad over the past couple of years.
Absolutely. Bryce, I think the maturity of this defense, not to mention the depth that you were talking about that they've brought in, is going to help them with those assignments and staying in their lanes, keeping their zones the way they need to. And hopefully that'll help this LSU team, because they're going to need that in that type of environment where communication is going to be hugely important, and it might be difficult given the nature of Death Valley Jr. But I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about LSU's perceived biggest liability going into this game, and that's the offensive line. How do you think they're going to fare, and what do you see? Are you comfortable with these changes that Kelly is talking about, rotating between 6, 7, possibly 8 players?
I think saying that you have 6, 7, 8 guys that can play is one thing. Saying that you might be able to force to rotate them, I mean, like, I'll ask this question. I don't even know how you do that. Does that mean situationally you're going to do that? Well, if that means situationally, then teams are going to be able to key in on what they think that new left guard is going to be best at, and then try to figure out the play. Like, if it's a guy like Mbinga, who's probably the most athletic, it might be a pass play, or it might be a pulling play. If it's a guy like Cohen Eccles who can put his hand in the ground and just brute strength you, well, then there might be saying, hey, this is a dive, or this is an inside zone. I don't know how you situationally utilize offensive linemen. I mean, that's something that, I just don't know if I've ever heard of that. So I think it's one thing, like I said, to say that you have 6 to 8 guys that can play, and then it's another thing to say you still don't know. I still don't think maybe they know or they don't want to say publicly. The second part I'll put it is, and I think this is going to help tremendously, and this isn't a personal shot or knock at DJ Chester. Chester struggled last year, and you had 4 guys around him that, regardless of what they do in the NFL, they were NFL-type talents. We can all agree on that. Will Campbell obviously was what Will Campbell was, but all of these guys were good enough to either sign an undrafted contract or, make their way onto a practice squad, all of those things. So that's what you had last year. But in the middle, you had a guy who was overwhelmed and wasn't comfortable and wasn't confident in making checks and calls and all those different things. Well, this year you've kind of had it flipped. Even though you have 5 brand new starters, you have a guy in the middle who's played significant snaps and has played, a lot of snaps. I mean, over the past couple of years, I believe Braylon Moore was, one of the guys that, kind of helped out Virginia Tech 2 years ago when they had a pretty decent running game behind their quarterback, Kyron Drones. And so you have a guy that understands how to make the checks, how to make the calls, all of these things. Even with the question marks maybe beside him, having a guy in the middle that understands and can calm things down, it might sound crazy, and this is a theory I'm trying to figure out, and it's going to be a data point that we've got to use the whole season to figure out. Would you rather be in the situation with where you were last year, knowing what you knew happened, or this year to where you've got a guy in the middle and the rest has to be fleshed out, but you know that you've got a guy that can organize things, can make those checks and make those calls? They didn't have that last year. So it's an interesting case study. I think it's, we're not going to know the answer till the end of the season, but very tale of two halves in terms of, kind of opposite ends of the coin, opposite ends of the spectrum with what you're rolling into this year with.
No, Bryce, I just wanted to ask, what's your overall prediction for Saturday night? What kind of game do you expect? Just kind of wrapping up.
Yeah, man, I love putting me on the spot here, Andre, to end the segment. No, seriously, though, I will say this. I think that LSU is going to be a pretty good team this year. I think Clemson is going to be a pretty good team this year. The versions that we're going to see on Saturday night are not going to be the same towards the end of the season. So I preface that, and I preface all that by saying I think Clemson wins this game on Saturday. To me, the returning production that they have, the continuity they bring back, it's hard for me to get past that and pick against them when they're playing at home and they kind of know who they are. This is going to be the first time that LSU has played with a lot of these guys on both sides of the football in an actual game atmosphere. I don't care how much you try to simulate that in the scrimmage we saw on Saturday or on the fall camp. You cannot simulate 80,000 plus people screaming at you for the first time and you're playing next to a guy for the first time. You just can't do that. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a really fun game to watch. I do have Clemson winning, though. But like I said, I think it doesn't spell the end of the year for LSU. I know fans will be disappointed. You never want to feel good about a loss. But to me, that factor of the returning production, kind of knowing who you are, it's a little too much for me just to say, hey, I think LSU can just beat all those odds and still win the football game. I think that LSU could win this game, but that for me is the big kicker and why I've got to pick out Clemson in a close one.
So does LSU cover?
I'll give them the cover. Let's give LSU the cover. Close game. Yeah, I'm there with that. I'll roll with that.
All right, Bryce Koon with On 3, LSU beat writer, headed to Clemson. Again, safe travels, and we look forward to talking to you again soon, Bryce.
How you doing? This is Snoop Dogg.
Tiger Rag Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you are tuned in.
Talk LSU sports, interviews, opinions, and your calls around the Tiger Nation.
Baton Rouge was a life for me, home with LSU Tigers.
Now more Tiger Rag Radio.
We love to score and get highlights and championships and play to win.
Tiger Rag Radio.
Back here on Tiger Rag Radio inside the Super Chevy Dealer Studio. Jeff Palermo, News and Sports Director of the Louisiana Radio Network, along with Todd Horne, who's the Executive Editor for Tiger Rag, and Andre Champagne with us as well. Good interview there with Bryce Koon, who helped us break down the season opener against Clemson. We heard the conversation there. It was Andre who asked a question about defending the mobile quarterback. Cade Klubnik actually rushed for over 400 yards last season. That's a solid number. That's kind of where Joe Burrow was in 2019, at 300 to 400 yard rushing. So he's a guy that's, certainly not someone that's going to, he's not Jaden Daniels, but he is someone that can beat you with the run. He had 2 rushes last year, in fact, of 50 yards or more. Here is Coach Brian Kelly talking about Cade Klubnik and how important he is to the Clemson run game.
He's, I would say, central to their run game. We didn't do a very good job against a running quarterback, so it's important that we contain him within the run game. Look, he's going to do things outside the realm. That's what he does. He's really good at that. We got to keep him in the pocket and make him operate from the pocket.
Guys, do you think they're better equipped to stop the running quarterback this season?
I do. I think that the experience and the maturity, as we were talking about with Bryce, that they have on defense, they've brought in the amount of games that they've played, which Charles Hannegriff, talked about at length on Tiger Rag Radio a few weeks ago, is certainly going to help them with that. I think having a healthy Harold Perkins back playing a star role is going to significantly impact any quarterback's ability to run the ball. I think they're going to use him as a spy quite a bit. That's typically the way you manage a dual threat quarterback, as well as one that runs very precise RPOs, which is that's what Klubnik's game is. I mean, Clemson is a typical RPO team, and he executes things very well at all three levels of the RPO. And combating that is one of Blake Baker's specialties. He just didn't have the tools or the quote-unquote toys last year to actually do it the way he wanted to. I think he has those this year, and it's just going to be a matter of executing, as Kelly says. And, whether they're able to pull it all together, like Bryce said, in this first game against Clemson, they're going to be able to pull it together during the course of the year. But, obviously Kelly thinks they're going to be able to pull it together against Clemson. Yeah. And I'm not going to say that he doesn't know what he's talking about, because he knows way more about it than we do. And he's been coaching for 34 years or whatever it is. And he brought in all those players, so I think they're going to be able to combat it. Go ahead, Andre.
Yeah, I agree with Todd. As far as this year, just because I went back and I actually looked at Klubnik's tape, and it's interesting because some of the more explosive plays that he had in the air last year were from outside the pocket. So I think it was pretty interesting that Kelly said we need to keep him in the pocket, and when he does feel pressure inside the pocket, that's when he gets a little more inaccurate. And we've seen the interceptions for Klubnik inside the pocket more so than outside, right? Obviously, he's able to open the pass game with his legs. So they're going to have to be able to do that on Saturday.
Let's take another break on Tiger Rag Radio. When we come back, we'll talk about this offensive line situation with LSU and the possibility that we could see 8 different offensive linemen in the season opener against the 4th-ranked Clemson Tigers. You're listening to Tiger Rag Radio from the Super Chevy Dealers Studio. Coming up at the top of the hour, John Eads, who covers LSU for WAFB-TV. He will join us, and we'll also get you a scouting report on the Clemson Tigers in hour number 2 as well. Stay tuned, much more coming up.
Tiger Rag Radio.
The details do matter. Every step, every hand on the ground, every route, everything that we do has a purpose. We are really focused, and our attention to detail is going to be unmatched.
Hey, we're back inside the Tiger Rag here on Tiger Rag Radio from inside the Super Chevy Dealers Studio. Jeff Palermo along with Todd Horne and Andre Champagne from TigerRag.com and Tiger Rag Magazine. Wrapping up hour number 1 of the show, and one of the biggest talking points from Coach Brian Kelly's press conference on Monday is this rotation potentially, or substitution, however you want to put it, on the offensive line. The possibility of as many as 8 guys playing on the O-line against Clemson. Here's what Coach Brian Kelly had to say about it on Monday.
Yeah, I don't know that you always need a static 22. You don't want everybody in a position where you're rotating every single player, but there will be a couple of positions where we'll have some rotation, and I think it will be good for us. You're going to see more than just 5 guys out there. You'll see, at least 6 or 7, could be as many as 8 offensive linemen playing for us.
It's amazing, guys, about how Brian Kelly has been optimistic about everything in preseason camp. But he's been around. He's been a head coach for 30-plus years. I mean, he can't be sitting there saying, hey, let's shuffle guys in and out on the offensive line, going on the road against a top 10 team with an entirely new offensive line, going up against 2 all-ACC preseason first-teamers on the defensive line. Saturday night, national television. This is exactly how we drew it up when preseason camp started. I don't buy it at all, and I'm not sure why. I can understand if you're playing Louisiana Tech, if you're playing Southeastern Louisiana, sure. If you want to get some other guys in there, that's great. But why you can't lock in on 5 guys, and maybe they will. Maybe it's a bit of a smoke screen. Maybe whoever they throw out there at the beginning of the game for the starting 5, those 5 guys are rock solid, and they go with them the entire game. But I just can't imagine they feel comfortable playing as many as 8 guys on the offensive line in this game.
Unless Brian Kelly is out strategizing all of us and utilizing the media to perpetuate a story that he wants Clemson to have, which he has done before, and I'm going to outline some of that in a TigerRag.com article later this week. But here's something to think about. These offensive linemen all are physical and built. We've talked about this in the past, more like Kelly wants an offensive lineman to be. He recruited these guys. He brought these guys in. And he also brought in Alex Atkins, okay, who is the running back coordinator for LSU, tight ends coach and running back coordinator. He was the offensive coordinator at Florida State, as well as the running game coordinator prior to that. And he, in 2023, used the counter and counter trap, which requires physical offensive linemen that can pull, especially the guards, and do pin pulls and things like that, that require a unique skill set and mobility that LSU's offensive linemen did not have the ability to do last year. They bring him in this year. They've got more offensive linemen scheduled for that. We went to roughly, the media, when I say we, went to roughly 15 hours of media viewing this year and saw no crosses, no gaps, no counters, nothing in practice. I'm saying that we only saw vanilla offense, and he's got a whole game plan that we haven't seen, and they're going to unleash that against Clemson.
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll get John Eads' take on it from WAFB-TV when we come back. Hour number 1 in the books of Tiger Rag Radio. We'll have more when we come back here on the Super Chevy Dealer Studios.
Y'all ready? Yeah. Let's go. Come on.
Tiger Rag Radio is on the air.
Let's crank this thing up.
We're statewide, breaking down the latest happenings with LSU athletics.
This is us.
Hear from the coaches,
Put together a defense that puts us in a position to win the SEC.
the players,
Having fun and we working, baby. That's it, baby.
the recruits,
Show some passion and some heart.
and those who cover the Fighting Tigers of LSU and the SEC.
All those things are going to be there, which are important.
It's 2 hours of nonstop LSU
What
talk.
a privilege. I mean, you get to represent LSU.
Tiger Rag Radio is brought to you by Cummins. Cummins creates power solutions that the world depends on. Helm Paint and Decorating. The paint experts of Louisiana. Louisiana Beef Industry Council. Max Home. And the East Baton Rouge Parish Library. Get ready to talk Tigers with producer Jackson Blackman and hosts Todd Horne, Jeff Palermo, and Glenn Gilbo.
We want players that are better people than they are players.
This is Tiger Rag Radio, live from Super Chevy Dealers Studio.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Tiger Rag Radio. Thanks for joining us here tonight. Glad you can be a part of it. I'm Jeff Palermo, News and Sports Director of Louisiana Radio Network, along with the Executive Editor for Tiger Rag Magazine. That's Todd Horne, and then Andre Champagne from Louisiana Radio Network and TigerRag.com also with us. We'll hear from Glenn Gilbo possibly here in hour number 2. He had a chance to talk to the Big Four, if you would, right? Garrett Nussmeier, Harold Perkins, Whit Weeks, Chris Hilton. Those are the 4 leaders of the team, and got an opportunity to speak with them prior to this huge matchup against Clemson in the season opener. We'll get you a scouting report on the Clemson Tigers as Jason Priester from the Clemson Insider will join us later on in this hour. But joining us now on the Max Home Hotline, it's John Eads, who covers LSU for WAFB-TV. John, thanks a lot for joining us on the Max Home Hotline. How you doing tonight?
Doing great. Appreciate y'all having me. Nice to have week 0 this past weekend. A little bit of football, but fired up for a big slate this weekend, which starts on Thursday and then obviously includes the big one there on Saturday night, LSU and Clemson, which I feel like we've been talking about for ever and ever, and it's finally time to put the ball down and see what happens.
Well, John, why don't you just go ahead and tell us what you think is going to happen? Let's just jump right on it. What do you think is going to happen?
You know, it's so hard to say. I've been thinking about it, and I know the narrative and the popular choice, heck, the betting odds favor Clemson, and I've just been trying to think about, all right, are we overthinking this? Are we not giving LSU enough credit in this game? I think that there's just kind of that mental stigma that people need to see it to believe it, like Santa Claus and Christmas. They need to see LSU, show up and beat a good opponent in a primetime game. One, do that in week 1 as well, because they've lost 5 in a row. And I feel like now's the time of the year where you start to hear that positive PR. You hear the good things that Brian Kelly says at the podium. He is, obviously a background with politics and the family and stuff like that. He kind of brings that to what he does as well when he goes to these press conferences trying to sell you on his team. And you know what? I bought into that the 2 years that I've been here, and it all sounds good, and you go to fall camp and it looks good, and you're like, okay, yeah, I could see that happening. But I just don't think I could buy it this year. And I hate to go along with what everybody else is saying, because I feel like everybody is picking Clemson, even the media contingent, most of them here in Baton Rouge. But look, this Clemson team is basically the same team as last year. Sure, there's a couple of guys that aren't on the team anymore, but they've been there. They've done that. They've won the ACC. They've gone to the playoff. They've played against Texas. They've played in these big games together, and they've won these games. And sure, they've lost a few as well. I mean, you think last year to Georgia and South Carolina, but they have been there and done that. And Brian Kelly's whole thing that he said on Monday was, hey, we brought in guys that have been there and done that. The guys that run the team last year have now experienced those kinds of things, but they haven't done it together, and they haven't done it together in a winning process. Clemson has more than LSU has. So I think it's just irresponsible to pick LSU considering what Clemson has done and what they bring back. I just feel like they're more ready-made to go out and win this game week 1. Maybe different week 12, week 13, but week 1, I think you got to go with Clemson.
Let me ask you a question about that, and that's obviously very logical and rational. But do you change your mind at the end of the first quarter if LSU has held their ground?
I don't think so, because, look, they held their ground against USC last year, I would say. And shoot, if the ball bounces a different way a couple different times, LSU probably finds a way to win that game. But I got to see a full, complete 4 quarters. I mean, they were all over A&M in that first half, right, and into portions of that third quarter, and then things absolutely unraveled. So, it's a 4-quarter game, and I've got to see them finish well. I think maybe that's been the issue with them in these season openers at times. Even the Florida State game in 23, you could even go back to 22. Is the first half goes well, they throw a couple of punches, they get punched, they're still in there, and then they just don't come out of the second half locker room with any juice, So, to be honest with you, I wouldn't change my mind until I actually see it happen. When the fourth quarter or overtime, whatever it takes, is over with.
So you really are saying they have to prove it to you. You're not going to believe it until you see it. And if you're helping Brian Kelly prepare his post-game press conference right now, like he alluded to during his press conference earlier this week, saying he's already, these are the things he was envisioning wanting to say, and these are the things he's envisioning not wanting to say. What do you think he's going to be saying at that post-game press conference?
Well, I mean, I'm thinking Clemson wins, so I'm thinking it's going to be another angry press conference, and I can't predict a table slam or whatever. And really, it's not even that big of a deal, sure, you want to win this game. And it would be a bad look from a PR standpoint to lose another season opener. And, all of us that get paid to talk are going to talk. But it's a long season. It's a 12-team playoff. You have plenty of opportunities down the road on this schedule to make up for that and go one step back to go 2 forward. You know what I mean? And they did that last year. They lost the first game. They rattled off 6 consecutive wins. And then they just had a bad second half against A&M. And then from there, I don't know why they came out and laid an egg against Florida, and the season was basically in the tank from there. Like, they had plenty of chances, like that Alabama game. They win that and they win out, they might sneak their way into the playoffs, So they've been there. Winning this game would get them off on a right trajectory towards that. But if they lose it, it's also not that big of a deal if they can make up for it on the back end. So if they were to lose, I don't know how heated his press conference would be. Probably in the moment pretty heated. But when you take a step back and look at it from a bird's eye perspective, this is a Clemson team that a lot of people like to not only make the playoff, win the ACC, but potentially win the national championship. And you might see them again later in the year. So I think you go in, you see what happens, and you regroup if you need to.
And I hear you, John, and I'm not disagreeing with you because I think you're speaking a lot of sense and you're making a lot of sense. The only thing is I look at that and I see what what Clemson did against Georgia, who you brought up, losing to Louisville. Georgia blew them out 34-3 and ran all over them. Mm-hmm. Georgia had no rushing offense last year. They were the only team who had a worse rushing offense in the SEC last year than Georgia was LSU, and Georgia rang up 169 yards on them last year in a 34-3 win. These are the same personnel for the most part. That's why I'm bringing it up. So we talk about this defense. Louisville ran all over them. South Carolina with Lenore Sellers ran all over them. And, of course, the fourth team was Texas that beat them in the college football playoffs, and, Clemson came back in that one. But my point is that these same guys, these same players that everybody's talking about being so great were fallible last year and were run on. So I think a lot of confidence in Clemson is being placed in Tom Allen, who's the new defensive coordinator coming over from Penn State. And yes, he's a great defensive coordinator, but I listened to his press conference today, and he talked about how he has confidence in his team, and they have confidence, but they have a long way to go to get everything together. And they're looking at LSU's offense and going, okay, we're going to be tested, we're going to be challenged. So it's not impossible that it can happen. It may be, as you say, improbable, but it can happen. The question is Kelly's optimism and confidence that he's been sharing with us all camp just some type of political gamut on his part?
Yeah, you kind of have to read between the lines. He's not going to get up there and go, yeah, I don't know, we don't have a great team or this or that. Like, everything he says is always going to be positive. And most coaches go up there and preach positivity because that's like you wouldn't go up there and be negative, or doubt your team, because then that's just a terrible look and you have cracks in your foundation and stuff. So it's a great point by you. Certainly LSU winning is nowhere near out of the realm of possibility. Like, I'd probably put it at 60-40 thereabouts. Like, I certainly see an avenue for LSU winning this game, but if I have $5 and I'm betting that $5, it's the last $5 I have, it's going on Clemson, just because I have to see it to believe it with LSU. I've been burned by it too many times, not only in the season openers, but as the season goes along and I see some things and the big game comes back and it's like, okay, is LSU ready to rise up and take this one? I've been burned on those too. I've taken them to win those games, and they have not shown up and played their A-level game when they've needed to. And to your point, Texas, South Carolina, Georgia, a bunch of SEC teams had success against these guys last year. So there's certainly a different level when it comes to this. Like, the ACC is definitely not as strong as the SEC, head-to-head. The one thing I will say is that when you look at the personnel that some of those teams had last year, like LSU doesn't have a Lenore Sellers, a big bowling ball of a quarterback that can run and is like 240 some odd pounds, right? Texas had a very good offensive line last year. Jaden Blue, a bunch of guys in that backfield. And LSU has a Caden Durham. But my question is with this offensive line, and Brian Kelly brought this up in his press conference, we're going to see 5 to 8 different offensive linemen. To me, I'm not a fan of that. You can bring in a sixth guy in a jumbo package, and I'm cool with that, but I like continuity and consistency. It's kind of like the quarterback position. If you got 2 quarterbacks, you got no quarterbacks. To me, you've got to have a starting 5 you feel good about and keep them in the game, because it is so difficult, I think, to continually rotate guys in and out of the guard and the tackle positions and have any semblance of continuity and consistency there. During the game, too, I don't think that's going to work. I think they need to find a group of 5 and settle on it, because right now I don't have a ton of confidence this team can go on the road and win 1-on-1, 5-on-5 against Clemson's defensive line with the starting 5 LSU has right now. And if you're mixing guys in and out, that drives my confidence down even more so.
Yeah, so John, this is Andre. Just kind of wrapping up here. So for LSU to win on Saturday, what do you think they have to do specifically on the field to kind of get that result?
I think establish the run game. I think that's going to be absolutely critical because that's something that they can go to in the red zone, but it's also going to force Clemson to leave some of these receivers out on islands. Like I think back to the bowl game, LSU ran the ball decent, if I recall, against Baylor, and that allowed Chris Hilton to get a one-on-one down, the seam, down the sideline. It allowed for Aaron Anderson to streak open over the middle. I think establishing the run game with that offensive line is the key. I personally don't think they're going to be able to do it, at least in this matchup, in this week. That could change as the season goes along. But to me, that opens up this entire offense, not to mention Bauer Sharp, Trades Green. Like, that's going to lead to success for your passing game, but also in the red zone. And in these week one season openers, turnovers, mistakes, and red zone efficiency are the things that decide these ball games. And LSU has not checked the box in all of those categories in the past 5 years. And I don't think they're going to do it here in the 6th. But if they do, I think they'll win.
John, is this a college football playoff team?
I think so. I think I have LSU pegged as a 9-10 win team that sneaks into the back end of the playoffs, kind of like like a Clemson last year minus the conference championship, because I don't think LSU is going to win the SEC this year. So I think so.
Okay. All right. Good stuff, John. Thanks a lot for joining us on the show. We appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, John.
That is John Eads from WAFB. We got more of Tiger Rag Radio coming up. We'll be right back after this here from the Super Chevy Dealers Studio.
Welcome to the Chevy Lightning Round. Guess the clues to win. First team, you're up.
Powerful, commanding, unstoppable.
Silverado.
Adventurous, fun, techie.
Trailblazer.
Stylish, nimble.
Trax.
Innovative, electric.
Blazer EV.
Lightning Round champions. You've guessed all the right Chevy clues.
Wherever the year takes you, explore it together in the Chevy of your choice. See your Super Chevy dealers today.
And we're back with Tiger Rag Radio, live from Super Chevy Dealers Studio.
We're back here on Tiger Rag Radio from the Super Chevy Dealers Studio. Jeff Palermo along with Todd Horne, Andre Champagne, and joining us now, it's Glenn Guilbeau, the editor for Tiger Rag Magazine. Glenn, how you doing tonight?
Good. Good evening. How are you guys?
We're doing well. We're doing well. You got a chance to talk to the big stars of this LSU football team. What did Garrett Nussmeier have to say about coming back from his season-ending knee surgery so soon? What did he have to say about that, Glenn?
Yeah, he was talking about how it was amazing how that all got started. He mentioned that and that there were no reporters around when it happened, which I think there actually were, but maybe there weren't a lot of them around. But he was surprised how that all happened, and he said he's 100%. He hadn't worn that sleeve in a couple of weeks now, so he was kind of laughing that off. But yeah, hats off to Michael Bonnet and his staff there for getting all the top players. I mean, you had Nussmeier, you had Chris Hilton, you had Whit Weeks, and you had Harold Perkins. It was pretty good.
Well, Glenn, what did Harold Perkins have to say? He hadn't been out visible much this year, so I'm sure it was unique to hear from him right at this point. What did he have to say?
Well, you know the story about how Blake Baker told us in the Tiger Rag Magazine Q&A, well, in the press conference as well, that he went up to Harold after last season and said, "What do you want to play?" And Harold told us that he said, "I thought that was a trick question," which is pretty cool of Harold. Good thinking by Harold. So he didn't take the bait at first, and exactly as Blake said, Harold said, what do you want me to do? Because Harold was like, maybe he's seeing, what kind of team player I am, by asking that. And then Blake said again, no, what do you want to do? So he said, well, I think I'm best at the star, and he said he's best when he's running around and rushing and having fun, which we've all said for 3 years now. I'm glad they're finally doing it. And he said, he didn't mind playing inside, but there's more opportunities for him to do what he's best at on the outside. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, they were all pretty interesting interviews, actually.
I'm just curious what their overall attitude is. I mean, tonight on the show, nobody that we've talked to really gives them a chance to pull this out. It's almost like, like John Eads just said a minute ago, I got to see it to believe it, and I'm not believing it until I see it.
Yeah, well, everybody, including, I think, probably a lot of the players and the coaches, you have that 0-4 on your mind, even though these guys weren't here for the whole 0-4. But that's what's on everybody's mind is it's a residual thing. LSU's not just playing Clemson. They're going out there with an 0-4 record in season openers. I think that's part of the reason they're not being picked to win. But the thing is, even if they had won a couple of those openers, or even if they'd won all those openers, I think a lot of people would probably be picking them to lose this game. Because, this is number 4 Clemson. They were in the playoffs last year, and they're returning most of their team, and it's at Clemson. So, but I got to say, most of the media picked Arkansas to beat LSU in Omaha. A little different thing, but
wait, that's a different sport. That's a different sport.
Yeah, different sport and different results on the back of that baseball team. But I picked Clemson too, But I'm kind of with Eads. He said there's a 40-60 chance LSU could win. I'm kind of thinking along those lines too. They got a chance to win, but I'm picking Clemson.
Well, the ESPN simulation, they did 10,000 simulations, and Clemson won 56%.
Maybe they got too much time on their hands.
Yeah, 50. I think that only probably takes a couple seconds to actually do, but that's 56% went to Clemson. So
well, that's pretty close.
Yeah. What did Garrett say about wearing number 18?
Oh well, he said the typical things. He said it was an honor, and he knew about the history of it. Somebody asked Whit Weeks if he lobbied for number 18. He said he didn't lobby for it, but he was he was kind of wanting it. But Tommy Karam was there, who's their media coach, has been doing that for decades at LSU. And I told Tommy that he really needs to work with Whit Weeks about being more positive.
Yeah.
And he started cracking up. But Whit was just so positive about everything he said. I mean, it's amazing. And it's not in it's not in an aggravating way. You can tell he just really believes it. I mean, that's his whole personality is he's really positive. Somebody asked him if he ever remembers being mad about anything, and other than his injury, he couldn't really remember.
Interesting. Well, what about Chris Hilton? Any words of wisdom from Chris?
Actually, I missed the Chris part because I was talking to Weeks at the time. I couldn't be at two places, but I'm gonna get him on the recording. But Harold was I thought Harold was really interesting. And found out Nussmeier's favorite musician is George Strait, which surprised me because that's about 2 generations before him. But he saw him at Fort Worth, and he was talking about that. And Whit Weeks listens to country music on the morning of games, and then when he gets to the stadium, it's Van Halen and AC/DC.
Wow, different attitude.
And then he switches over to rap after that. So he's the gamut.
Glenn, we got to take off here. Thanks a lot. Look forward to seeing what you put together for TigerRag.com based on the players you had a chance to speak with tonight. And it's fun. Finally, the season's starting here. Thanks a lot, Glenn.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
All right, that is Glenn Guilbeau, the editor for Tiger Rag Magazine. When we come back, we'll get you that scouting report on the Clemson Tigers. Jason Priester from the Clemson Insider. He will join us on the Max Home Hotline. Stay tuned for that. From the Super Chevy Dealer Studio, this is Tiger Rag Radio.
Summer reading is done. Back to school has begun. Join your East Baton Rouge Parish Library for events in August that will help make this school year one for the books. Attend a presentation about educational resources in our digital library. Sign up your teen for a practice ACT test and get to know some of the tutors that offer their services at the library. Learn more about these and other events at ebrpl.com. That's ebrpl.com.
Tiger Rag Radio.
The details do matter. Every step, every hand on the ground, every route, everything that we do has a purpose. We are really focused, and our attention to detail is going to be unmatched.
Back here on Tiger Rag Radio, Jeff Palermo along with the executive editor for Tiger Rag Magazine, Todd Horne, and Andre Champagne joining us inside the Super Chevy Dealer studio. Let's now get you a scouting report on the Clemson Tigers. Joining us on the Max Home Hotline, it's Jason Priester from the Clemson Insider. Jason, thanks a lot for joining us on Game Week. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, man. I appreciate you guys for having me on tonight.
Well, it's great to have you on. My question about, I got several questions to throw at you, Jason, during this time that we have you on. First of all, defensively for Clemson, I mean, how good is this unit? We've read the stories about how this team struggled to defend a run. There is a new defensive coordinator. You look at the preseason all-ACC team, and I think there's 5 guys from Clemson that are on that, including 2 on the defensive line. So, I mean, is this a really good defense that for whatever reason just struggled with scheme or just weren't coached up right last year? Or is it just the feeling is, hey, these guys got better as the season went along last year and they're a year older and they should be just a much better defense this season, especially with a new DC at the helm?
You know, I think it's a little bit of all of that. I think they had some issues internally last year. If you go back to the year before last with a lot of these same players, not all of them, but some of them, the defense was pretty solid. They were top 10 in some categories. They were top of the ACC in most categories, and it just kind of fell off of a cliff last year for whatever reason. I just think there were some issues maybe off the field, inside of the facility over there, that kind of creeped onto the field and just kind of ended up with not all guys pulling in the same direction, if that makes sense. I think that's a big part of why Dabo Swinney made the change, bringing in Tom Allen. I don't think there's ever been a question of talent. I just think for whatever reason this unit didn't mesh last year, and I think that is one of the biggest questions as we head into the season. You know, how much of a rebound is this defense going to make? Because you look at all 3 levels, there's talent. That talent should be producing results, and last year it didn't. But that's one of the biggest questions for this team as you head into this big game. Are they going to be better against the run? Are they going to be better against the pass? Because they weren't very good at all times against the pass last year either. I know the run defense takes a lot of the criticism, but it was across the board. They had failures all across the board, particularly over the back half of last season.
Hey, Jason, this is Todd. Sticking with the defense for a minute, you know, we know that they brought in the defensive end from Purdue, Helt. How has he fit in with the rest of that defense, especially that front 7 so far in camp, from what you can tell?
You know, I think he's a great complement to T.J. Parker, the other end opposite of him. That was a big weak spot on the defense last year. Really kind of struggled to set the edge a lot, and it ended up where they would give up some big chunk plays on the ground. But Dabo Swinney was actually talking about Will Helt today and talking about how well he's kind of fit in, and he always goes above and beyond anything that's asked of him. But he seems like a really good personality fit, and I think he's going to really help shore up what were some of the weaknesses last season. You know, he can get after the passer. He might have some areas he still needs to improve in when it comes to run defense. But I think he is a huge upgrade when you consider what they had last year.
This game between LSU and Clemson, obviously Clemson's the favorite, and they should be, especially because they're playing at home, but also because they're higher ranked and made it to the college football playoffs last year and have so many players coming back. But this game will be won not in a battle between Garrett Nussmeier and Cade Klubnik, but in the trenches. True or false?
Absolutely true. I think that's a big part of this thing. You look at that defensive front Clemson has, and then you look at LSU, who has to replace four really good starters from that offensive line last year. And I get it. They brought in a couple of transfers or a couple of really good transfers. But for me, the question is, how quickly do they mesh? Sometimes those things take time. I can remember sometimes in years past when Clemson's had to replace 2 or 3 starters along that offensive line, and it takes a few games for them to kind of get in a groove. Or is that LSU offensive line going to be clicking on all cylinders from play one, game one, or is it going to take a little bit of time? I think that's if Clemson wants to win this game, that's the battle they have to win. They can't let Nussmeier get comfortable in the pocket. They have to keep him sealed up in there and try to pressure him into some mistakes.
Yeah, Jason, just switching over to that Clemson offense, can you talk about running back Adam Randall and what that Clemson run game may look like this year? And I know Dabo talked about it today about the offensive line, that not being completely set yet. Can you just talk about Randall and that kind of transformation he's made this offseason?
Yeah, he's kind of one of the neat stories around here. A guy that he was fairly highly regarded coming out of high school, played at Myrtle Beach. He was considered a big-time wide receiver prospect, and it just has not translated over his first 3 years. He's dealt with some injuries, and going into that game against Texas in the playoff last year, Clemson needed somebody to help run the ball with Phil Maffa suffering from an injury, and they moved Randall over there, and he pops off a big 41-yard run, and they say, hey, maybe he can do this. So they move him over there permanently. He's been there since, going into the spring, stayed there. He's been atop the depth chart the whole time. I am kind of anxious to see how he does here. You're hearing all the right things. I've heard nothing but glowing reviews from his performances in camp and going back to spring. And then there's a couple of guys behind him. You have true freshman Gideon Davidson, who was a big-time back, one of the best backs in the country in the last class. And then you also have a guy like David Azuiumame. I think I'm saying that right. He redshirted last year, kind of more of an under-the-radar guy coming out of high school, but they like him a lot. And Garrett Riley called him a punishing running back today. But that's another question for this Clemson offense. Are they going to be able to generate some yards on the ground? Because that run game really stalled last year when Phil Maffa got hurt. They just had nobody behind him that was ready to step up. And they're going to need 2 or 3 of those guys to step up in this game. And I can't wait to see what Adam does, man. It sounds like he's doing all the right things, but does that mean it's going to translate to Saturday night? We'll have to wait and see.
Jason, talk to us a little bit about these receivers. They were really young last year, but they really performed a lot. And what's the pecking order for those guys?
Yeah, I think this is one of the strengths of the offense. They've got, I think they can go 5, 6 deep at wide receiver. They've got 4 really good guys. I think you'll probably see the first 3 that run out there. It'll be Antonio Williams in the slot and Bryant Wesco and TJ Moore as your outside guys. Moore and Wesco were true freshmen last year, so they've had a year in the strength program. Both of those guys look bigger and stronger, and I think Wesco in particular was a guy that needed to add some strength. It'll help him fight off some of that press coverage at the line of scrimmage. And then you bring in Tristan Smith, a big 6'5" wide receiver. They added him from the portal. He has been a great compliment. He had a big day in the spring game. And then you've got Tyler Brown, who backs up Antonio Williams at the slot. He was a freshman All-American 2 years ago, missed most of last season with an injury. They're kind of chomping at the bits, waiting on him to get back on the field. And then there's Cole Turner, who kind of rounds out that group of 6. But that is a position I'm excited to see. Clemson was always known for having a lot of really good wide receiver play over the years. It kind of fell off for 3-4 years. And now it looks like they've got that thing stocked back up, and they've got a really good group of guys in that room.
Who backs up Klubnik if something were to happen to him?
Chris Vizina is the backup quarterback. This is going to be his he's been this will be his third year now. He's a redshirt sophomore, if I'm remembering that right. He was Klubnik's backup last year. Haven't seen a lot of him. He's a big kid out of the state of Alabama. He's 6'4", probably 215, 220 pounds, big arm. He throws it with a lot of accuracy. He probably runs better than you would think he would, looking at him for such a big kid. But he's kind of one of those unknown commodities at this point because we just haven't seen much of him. And the thought around here is he's the guy that's going to take over after Klubnik leaves. So they would like to probably try to get him a little bit more experience this year than he's had to this point.
What would you say is the percentage of RPOs that Clemson's offense runs in a game, just out of curiosity?
Oh, man, that's a good question. I've never even thought about that. They do a lot of RPO stuff. If I had to break it down to a percentage, I'm not sure, man. I'd probably say somewhere in the neighborhood of at least 30, 40%. And Klubnik's a guy that's kind of gotten a lot better at running that kind of stuff and knowing when to keep it and when to take off and run with it. I think that's an area he could still improve in a little bit, but it's a big part of it.
What are you looking at in this game to be the big keys?
I go back to the battles at the lines of scrimmage. I just don't. I think if Clemson allows Garrett Nussmeier the time to get settled in the pocket and get comfortable and get in the groove, LSU has the playmakers at wide receiver to create havoc. I don't know that it matters what you got in the secondary. If you give those guys enough time, they're going to find a way to get open. So I think if Clemson's going to win this game, they've got to control the line of scrimmage, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. And on the other side, I think they need to establish the running game early. To kind of take some of the pressure off Klubnik, some of those pass catchers, maybe try to open some things up down the field. I think they have to try and get Adam Randall going and getting him in a groove early.
Jason, we'll get you out on this question here. How big of a game is this for Dabo Swinney?
I think it's a big one, at least from a perception standpoint. They lost all 3 games against SEC teams last year. He's 3-7 against the SEC in his last 10. If you lose this game, the narratives are going to just almost immediately start how Clemson's not able to compete with their SEC counterparts. It's one they need to win. I know a lot of people think they need it for the resume and the playoff and all that, but I think it's even bigger for perceptions.
Jason, good stuff. We really appreciate it and enjoy the game on Saturday night.
Appreciate you guys having me on, man. Thanks.
Jason Priester with the Clemson Insider here on the Max Home Hotline. We're inside the Super Chevy Dealers studio. Couple more segments of Tiger Rag Radio after this.
Now more Tiger Rag Radio, live from Super Chevy Dealers Studio.
Continuing on here, Tiger Rag Radio from the Super Chevy Dealers Studio. Jeff Palermo along with Todd Horne, the executive editor for Tiger Rag Magazine, and Andre Champagne from Tiger Rag and the Louisiana Radio Network. Guys, we're getting closer here to the end of the show. Give me one thing that you're really going to be looking for in this game. We'll start with you, Todd.
Oh, okay. I actually had Andre queued up to go first.
All right, let's start with you, Andre.
All right, yeah, sure. I'm honestly, this is somewhere where I don't know if a lot of eyes are going to be on. I'm really interested to see how the cornerbacks hold up against this Clemson offense on Saturday, especially those talented receivers that Jason kind of just talked about. I think last season LSU kind of just played in the secondary, against elite wideouts with more of a mindset, hey, let's bend, don't break. You had a lot of corners playing 10 yards off the ball, right? And traditionally LSU is not known for that, right? So this year, with the depth and the experience they have, I'm interested to see how aggressive they're going to be on plays on the ball, obviously, but just in one-on-one coverage. I think they're going to be much more improved this year when it comes to those kinds of matchups.
Eager to see the safety play, too. Very eager to see that. Todd, what do you got?
I just want to see if this is a physical, hard-hitting LSU football team in the mold of what we're used to seeing LSU football teams be. Mm-hmm. Can they bring the wood? Are they going to be like A.J. Hawsey at that safety position? Because I think he's going to deliver it. Are they going to be able to do it across the board consistently at the rest of the positions? They need to be physical. They need to push people around. They need to hit people in the mouth. I want to see if this LSU team's got that.
I think what I'm looking for is what is the run-pass ratio going to be? I mean, it really is crazy when you look at the statistics from last season. I mean, they were nearly 60% pass. And I understand you had injuries with the running backs. The injury to John Emery was a big one. Caleb Jackson, ineffective. Caden Durham, dislocated toes. No Trey Howley, all this kind of stuff. And the fact was that the strength was Garrett Nussmeier throwing the ball to a good group of receivers. Now you even have a deeper group of wide receivers. How committed are you truly to running the football? How much has that been hammered in the head of Joe Sloan? Because I don't know how close it came. I don't think it came close to him losing his play calling duties last year, but let's face it, they got on him towards the end of the year because there wasn't the commitment to running the football. I want to see if it's going to be 50-50 or if they fail to do anything after a couple carries or a few carries, they say, forget it, let's start throwing the ball all over the yard. I mean, that works to a point, as we saw last year, but it isn't the best way to really have a great season. We'll take a break. We'll make some predictions on this one, so stay tuned for that as we wrap up Tiger Rag Radio from the Super Chevy Dealer Studio.
You should call that radio station and let him have it.
Good idea. 1-800-673-5555.
I want to be under the bright lights. I want to be on the Broadway stage.
Tiger Rag Radio is on now.
Yep, final segment of Tiger Rag Radio from the Super Chevy Dealer. It's been a fun show. Glad it's finally game week. It's finally here. Tired of talking season. I'm tired of hearing about just how everything is great. There's nothing wrong. Every player is great. All these transfer guys are going to hit. I kind of want to get some answers here. I mean, how good this team really is. I think it can be really good. But I still have some serious questions about them, and I think we get some answers on a Saturday night. I think we get some answers as far as the mental toughness of this team, guys.
Yeah, I think the mental toughness is going to be on display early, and you'll know if LSU has that mental toughness, if they've come together as a team early. That's why I asked one of the earlier guests, John Eads, if LSU's performing well in the first quarter, what do you see from that? He took it and said he didn't see much. He wanted to see the whole thing. But I think that's going to be imperative early to see how LSU reacts to that. And I think they'll be able to stack victories if they're able to do that early. If they can cut down on the turnovers and if they can run the ball at all, but I think that they need to run about 160, 170 yards.
Wow, that's a lot.
I know. I think that's what they're going to need to do.
That's a lot. Who's going to run for it? Is Durham running for 100 yards?
You know, Jeff, we can talk about Jawan Johnson if you want to go into detail about it. But I think
Johnson's going to come out of nowhere,
yeah,
huh?
I think Johnson's going to be as Brian Kelly says, an integral part to what we do this year. I think he's going to be a factor. I think that LSU is going to need to run the ball to keep Clemson off the field, and I think LSU's defense is probably going to perform well. But if LSU can do all those things, I think they can muster a win. I just don't. I don't see it happening right now. I think the over/under is 58. I don't think it's going to get there, but I don't see LSU winning.
You don't see LSU winning?
No.
Okay. And you've been Mr. Positive here.
Yeah. I think LSU is going to be really good.
Yeah.
I don't think they can afford really to lose this game because there's going to be no margin for error the rest of the year.
Right.
9-3, no 9-3 team has ever made the college football playoff. And since they, obviously that was just the first year last year of 12. But I mean, they would have to be the first.
I get you. Yeah.
It'd be tough.
All right, Andre, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Todd. I think that this is going to be, it's going to be a close game for the most part. I'm interested to see how LSU responds to adversity in this game. If they can respond to adversity, that will be the biggest thing. But I think this is going to be a very defensive game, and I think LSU loses by field goal.
Wow. All right. I'll be the Mr. Optimistic here. I think it's low scoring, too. I think the 57.5 is a little bit too high on the over-under. I like LSU to win like 21-17. How about that?
All right. I can't believe you picked LSU. That's amazing.
We'll end the show on that. For Todd, for Andre, for Glenn, for Jackson, this has been Tiger Rag Radio from the Super Chevy Dealer. I'm Jeff Palermo. Thanks for listening.
Tiger Rag is everywhere. Online at tigerrag.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Tiger Rag Magazine. Or follow us on Twitter at Tiger_Rag.